Awesome. So, potted or planted. Now, somebody removed my examples I had in front of me. Thank you for, for disturbing my display. If there's one around somewhere, can I please have it back? At least one of my props. So, thank you, Sage. All right, he's bringing it just so that you can all see he's in church on the first Sunday. This is my brother-in-law, and he's normally working. So, all right, this is what I mean, potted. All right, it's not that guy sitting next to you. It's this thing that I'm talking about. All right. If you laugh now, then, I mean, you grew up in the time of the hippies. So this is the pot I'm referring to. My scripture for today is Psalm 92. It says, verse 13 and 14, those who are planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall bear fruit in old age. They shall be fresh and flourishing. Who do you think of when I read that scripture? Those who are planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall bear fruit in old age. They shall be fresh and flourishing. Okay, some of you are thinking about older people, right? Some of you are thinking about those who go to church and who are planted in the church and they're in love with church. Some of you are thinking about tennis because you hear the word courts. But who do you think about when I read this scripture? Whenever a scripture is read, the first person to think about is you. But we are programmed to think about who it applies to, instead of starting with ourselves. So, when I was in Sweden on my last visit, Pastor Urban's daughter was saying she had an amazing sermon about pot plant Christians and rooted Christians. And she just shared 1 or 2 minutes about the sermon that they had just come from and heard. And I thought, that is a fantastic picture. I wish I could get the sermon so I can listen to it. So I'm not copying that, but I just thought, what a beautiful analogy that she was referring to. So I will try my best to capture the theme of potted or planted. And some of you might already, who watch a lot of series, might know where I'm going. So you're in episode 13 already. But I am going to stick to the scripture. And my favorite tree of all times is an oak tree. And when we were looking for a house, Yvonne, I told Renee, we're going to buy a house with an oak tree. I love oak trees. I tried to grow one at the lodge, and it grew and it died. And I was so sad that the oak tree would not grow, because the soil there, anything grows. The flies grow amazingly. But anything that you put in the ground there just grows. Except this oak tree was an expensive tree. I mean, it was an English oak that I planted, and I thought this is a fantastic place. It will provide fantastic shade over the island. And it grew for a few months, and then suddenly it died. And an oak tree is my favorite tree. I've watched a 2.5-hour documentary on an oak tree. That's how much I love oak trees. If any of you watch that documentary, Pastor Salvin will pray for you afterwards. You need help to sit for so long to watch a documentary just on an oak tree, one single oak tree. And I loved every minute of it. I enjoyed it. But they say that it takes 300 years for an oak tree to grow. Then it takes another 300 years for an oak tree to live. And it takes 300 years for an oak tree to die. There are some oak trees that have been around for hundreds of years. If you travel through Constantia, those oak trees were planted by some of the first settlers that have come in the 1600s, and they had planted oak trees around Cape Town. They brought them on that ship, and they planted them. I don't know where the squirrels came from, but it must have been hiding amongst the oak trees. But they brought them and they planted them, and they have taken root here, and they've grown over hundreds of years to be enormous oak trees. If you travel into Europe, there are some oak trees that are so old. I mean, you can't imagine how old they are. They're there before most of the buildings. But an oak tree has an extensive lifespan. But there's some beautiful things about an oak tree. Today is not a course in botany. But I want to allude, because Scripture reuses oak trees. I mean, there's so many scriptures where oak is being used. And oak is not the guy sitting next to you, just so that you know that. You know, in Cape Town we say the oak. It is not that person sitting next to you. And it's not an old oak either. So they say the best time to plant an oak tree was 100 years ago. Or the best time to have planted a tree was yesterday. The next best time to have planted a tree is today. You should never wait to plant a tree. You should do it immediately. And that is a message I want you to etch into your memory, is do it quickly. Whatever you have to do, do it quickly. Do it. If God says it, don't hesitate. The biggest challenge to being obedient to God is having plan B. We always prepare just in case. And it's the biggest opposition to obedience, is waiting until plan B is in place. Sometimes plan A is sketchy and it's scary, but you need to do it. So I just want to say that if you catch my message today, being potted means you put in a pot. But being planted means you are rooted and you are grounded. And if you take the scripture, we are rooted and we are grounded in Christ. And if you've missed any message, you need to go and examine Christ, who Christ is. And some of you are still chewing on some of those statements we have made. But you're going to be challenged with a question today. And the question is, Charles, am I potted or am I planted? And for some of you, you are in transition between potting and being planted. Some of you are in transition of being planted to being replanted. The most dangerous time in the life of a tree is when it's replanted. I want to speak to some who are in the process of being uprooted and replanted. Do not be afraid, because the Lord is the vine. The Father is the vine dresser. He is the one who knows how to lift up and uproot and how to replant. It's not your ability. It's not you. He has prepared you. And I want to say that it's the most difficult and dangerous time in the life of any tree to be replanted. Have you noticed a tree? Rian does landscaping. I mean, he's awesome. I watched him fight with trees here. I mean, it's just like, wow, this guy's a black belt in fighting trees. And he knows probably much more than what I know about trees and about oaks. But It's dangerous when you replant a tree. He will take these big trees in these big bags and he would plant them and replant them. And you will notice some of those, what happens to the leaves. Have you noticed? They look so sad. They're droopy. And some of you have been looking just like that tree. It's droopy, it's sagging, and it's hanging, and it's weighty, and it's like, but I want to assure you there is a stream of living water that's flowing, and it's soon when that root system taps into that water, suddenly the leaves become alive, and new leaves start to sprout, and new branches start to grow. And do not be preoccupied with your droopiness. Be occupied with the river that's flowing. Search for the living water. If you're being replanted, don't look around you to compare yourself with the other trees. Look for the stream of living water. Look for the river of life. When you find it, you will find life and you will grow and you will be strong. So, do you get some of the prophetic images being painted as I speak? Because church is fertile ground to be planted. I want to speak pretty boldly, and some might not like this. And I know if you're online today, you're going to say, oh, am I planted or am I potted? Is he speaking to me or is he not speaking to me? Or some right now will change the channel. They're going to switch off because they feel guilty because they know where this is going. Because whenever we are challenged, we rather pause and postpone and want to come back to it. I want to say, stay with me. Stay with me because the challenge this year is how deeply you are planted. And if you take these beautiful pictures from nature, and I want you to remember the oak tree today. And because I believe that if you are planted correctly, if you are planted in the place where the Lord has prepared for you, you will prosper. You will flourish. Your family will be protected. They will be shaded by you flourishing. They will be strengthened by the nutrients you draw. And today I want you to dig deep and to use these analogies to first check yourself. Where you are planted determines whether you will function or not. You were made to function. It's the Lord who orders his church. The head of the church is not the pastor. Can I just say that? Pastor Salvin is here. He's going to correct everything I say after this. But can I say the head of the church is not the pastor? The head of the church is Christ. Christ is the head of the church. And when we get that right, a lot of things will be fixed. But where you are planted determines whether you fulfill your redemptive purpose. So, I want to show you some things about an oak tree. Can I get a picture of some oak trees, gentlemen? You've got my scripture. So this is a young oak tree planted in a forest amongst pine trees. And do you notice the oak tree? It's a young oak tree. If you don't know trees, you might think it could be a small pine tree. But if you know your trees, you will notice it's pretty different. That squirrel must have had lots of fun digging that acorn in that forest. But that oak is growing in uncanny circumstances. It's growing amongst trees that's very difficult to grow. because pine trees have the ability to block out light. They also produce those needles which are pretty acidic, which makes the soil very difficult for other trees to grow in. And I want to say, some of you have been planted in pretty uncanny soil or circumstances. But when the Lord has planted you, don't try and be a pine tree. Be an oak. Because where He's planted you, He's provided for you. He's provided for you to flourish, to be nourished. He will take care of you. I see so many oaks trying to be pine trees. You know what the most interesting thing for me is? We gather pastors here regularly. It's how pastors who come, first thing they do is they measure themselves amongst other pastors. If you ever get into a gathering of pastors, it's very difficult. Thank God we have broken that thing in our family, that there's no comparison and there's no competition. We have broken that through trying to serve one another rather than trying to seek what we can get from each other. And that's how you break that spirit. But tell somebody, be an oak. Otherwise, you're just going to be piney. Be an oak. If the Lord has planted you, be that oak. Yeah, and we are called to be oaks of righteousness. But I want to show you something interesting about an oak tree. The next one, next picture. This is an oak tree that grows freely in a field. There is something interesting about that oak tree. Who thinks it's really beautiful? I've got some other oaks who likes oaks. So that is, don't you just want to go and lie down under that tree? I know what some of you are thinking, Braaiwood. But it looks so inviting to go and just put your picnic basket, your 2 glasses, open your cheese hamper, sit there with your beloved, and just get it to scratch your head. Isn't that so inviting? But I want to tell you something about an oak that grows wildly in a field. Do you see how big the branches are? How spread out? But do you see how short the trunk is? And how the branches have just grown? I want to show you an oak tree that's even more wild. I call this the hippie oak tree, or the Rasta. Next one. Do you see the dreads? I mean, this is an oak tree that has just grown wild in Europe. It's just gone totally crazy. It's out in the open and is just oaking away. All right? And that's what it looks like. But I want to show you an oak tree that grows in a forest or in a plantation. Can you show me the next one? Do you see the difference? Maybe the next picture will even be better. These are white oaks. Not me. It's a white oak. You know, I just love Matthew. He thinks all my quirky jokes are jokes. Some of them are statements. But do you see, that's in a plantation. It's actually a forest where these oaks are growing. You notice how they're growing? What do you notice about? They are straight up. It's straight up, brother. It's you know the beauty of this oak tree? Why do I show you these pictures? Because some who are potted are very happy being potted. But some who are planted in a church are not very happy because there are other trees around you that are not kind of comforting. They're not the best trees to hang out with. And you wish you can just go to a church where everyone's like you. But it doesn't happen. It's not available on earth. And if you do find that church, please don't go there. But what's the significance of the oak that is planted and grows freely in the field and an oak that grows in a forest? When there are other trees around the oak, it forces the oak to strive for sunlight. It pushes it to grow straight. It forces it to grow beyond the other trees that's trying to block it and to absorb its nutrients. That oak grows deeper and it decides to reach for the sunlight. I want to say, we are so busy focusing on one another, we need to focus on Him. And we need to focus on the light. We need to focus on the truth that's in His Word. We need to find Jesus. And when you come to church, our position is first when we enter, hello brother, hello sister, hello, what's your name again? We greet one another and we love. But when we come, our default position is hallelujah. We lift up our hands to the heavens. We declare that He is the Lord, and we lift our gaze towards Him. Why do we do that? So that we can stretch for Him. We can show, I'm interested in more, Lord. I'm growing towards You. And when somebody comes and towers over you and starts to shade your light, all you need to do is grow some more. All you need to do is stretch some more. All you need to do is just say, just hold on a minute. I'm just growing. When somebody looks down and you say, hey, Alan, look at that small tree. Oh. Don't focus on what they've said about your smallness. Focus on what is drawing you. Let the glory of the Lord draw you. Be drawn by Him. You don't need to be driven by others if you are drawn by the Lord. And I want to say, you grow straight. But what's the point, Charles? What is the point? I want to tell you that if you were a sailor back in the day looking for a ship to sail around the world, the most useful oaks are the ones who have been growing straight. The useless oaks are the ones that are wild and growing everywhere, and they are just doing their own stuff. They are useless to anybody, only for firewood. They cannot be used for furniture. They cannot be used for any other purpose other than just to be wild and then to be good firewood. It offers nice protection for some. But if your whole life is just protecting, you will forget that you've actually been born for a purpose. And these oaks, they have caused men and women to discover the world, some for good intentions and others for bad. But they've discovered the world on ships made with these oaks. They have grown straight. Some of the most beautiful furniture that you pay hundreds and thousands of rands for have been made from these oaks. Some of those oaks are so expensive. I had a table, I won't say whose table it was, I won't even look that way. I was so scared when somebody walked into my office who was a renowned wood expert, said, "Yo, Pastor, you have an expensive table, in your office." I said, "Really? No, it's just an old table. Somebody parked it here in my office." He said, "No, I've made these tables. This oak comes from this region in France." I said, "Oh, you know?" He said, "Yes. If you look under the table, you'll see this pattern, you'll see this about the oak." He said, "Pastor, you know that this table is over 80,000 rand?" I never ever put my cup again on that table. And that brother whose table it is now wondering, yo, what did I do with that table? Can I just say that some of you have been covered, and some of you have been growing in different directions, and you've been bent out of shape, but it's time to grow straight. It's time to come into your purpose. It's time to know that you are being groomed for function. And I like the next picture. Anybody know what this is? Oh, is the word there? Oh. It's a bonsai oak. This is it's actually a mature oak tree. Have you seen some of these guys? Like, it is an art. That tree is very old, and it's in bonsai form. It's an art to get that oak tree to actually be mature and just that small. I mean, that's an oak tree. What's the purpose of that bonsai? It's just so that your friends can say, oh, wow, that is awesome. That looks really cool. How do you do that? Where do you get the time to clip that little leaves? You are so brilliant, and you feel so good. You have bonsai'd an oak. Isn't it so? And I love the pastors who say, this is brother so-and-so, and he does this, and he does that. And all the pastor's done is bonsai'd you. You look good, but you function nada. There's zero function. It's good to brag about, but there's no function. And I want to say, you are made to function. You are made to grow deep. Do you know how they get that? If you want to pot an oak, here's the secret. You've got to cut its taproot, the main root system, the taproot of an oak. If you didn't know that, I didn't know it either. All right, so you've got to cut the taproot off the oak, and then you've got to plant it. The problem with that is the oak was designed to have a taproot system. Its stability, its strength, its longevity comes from having the taproot. And some of you had scissors at your taproot, and I'm here to say that taproot is still intact because Jesus is Lord, and you alive, and you here, and it's time for you to grow your taproot. Tell your neighbor, tap in. It's time to grow your taproot. It's time to dig deep. And oak trees are amazing. They have recorded the sound that oak trees make for an entire year, the sound that an oak tree makes. And you know, an oak tree, the sounds communicate to nature. And they found how an oak tree can communicate to certain insects. They have found that an oak tree can actually communicate to other oak trees through a particular sound that it makes. I want to say, I would love to be in a forest where oak trees are making a sound, but I would much also like to be in a house of worship where oaks of righteousness are making a sound of praise and making a sound of worship, not like this, but maybe like this, a sound of worship where we are lifting up our voices unto the Lord and making a noise to Him, a joyful noise, not like that yet. But this year, I would ask you, are you planted or are you potted? The thing with being potted is it's easily transportable. Isn't that so? And to be a potted Christian, it's easy to be uplifted. and say, I don't like this environment. Let me go to where it's warmer. Let me go to where the water, they don't feed me with flay water. Let me go where I think there's more light here. There's more. I love these people on this side. They look kind of friendly. I love these people here. They look like they've got a lot of money. They can take care of me. Right? The challenge with a potted plant is that it is easily movable. And I love the advantages of being easily movable. The challenge with being in a pot is that the root systems starts to grow to the size of the pot, and they expand to a point where they actually start to choke itself. And if you are in a pot and you are not firmly rooted, you will start to choke on your own nonsense. You will start to choke and be inflated with your own ideas, your own doctrines, your own teachings. You will start to borrow from other things, and you will start to mix in your soil, because that's what a pot does. And the thing with a pot plant Christian is we need to give them a Sunday top up. We need to every week come with some water, and Pastor Sabo, we need to give him not too much water, because then they drown, and then they look kind of miserable, just like that, But when we need to be very careful, because, we need to give that 20-minute sermon. Because if we give that 39-minute sermon, we walk out droopy. But there's one thing with a tree that is rooted and planted in deep soil. You can pour water and water and water. It will take what it needs. This thing will die if you overwater it, because it's not made to be overwatered. Do you get where I'm going with this? Tell somebody, I'm tired of being potted. So, I know some of you, and I won't talk about you, you love pot plants. You love pot plants. The thing, we have pot plants at home. The thing with pot plants is I get to plant it. I get to buy it. I get to pay for it. I get to plant it. I get to scrub my nails afterwards. My wife loves pot plants. She can watch me plant them all day. But if I don't water that pot plant, it's going to die. When we go away for a few days, I cannot leave my pot plant alone for a day. It's not even my pot plant. I need to think, okay, Sean, are you available? Can you come? You need to water the plants. It's not even his plants. Pot plant Christians, they are high maintenance. Can you say amen to that? They are high maintenance. You can't leave them alone for a week, because then they somehow married a rose thorn. You need to constantly be working with him. But I love the trees that are deeply rooted. Their tap roots have tapped into the indwelling or the underground springs that flow in the earth, and they manage to tap into their living source, and they live. This plant only lives when it's fed. It only lives to the capacity of the plant and its owner. But a plant that is rooted, a tree that is rooted, lives beyond its owner's capacity to feed it. It outgrows even its neighbors. I want to say some of you have been potted for too long. It's time to be rooted. It's time to be rooted. And it's not some of you are so unhappy. This leaf died right here. Because you know what I'm talking about. And I want to say, if the Lord plants you in a church, grow your roots. Maybe there's the thorn bush growing next to you. It's okay. Stop looking at the thorns. Look at the roses on the bush. Maybe there's a cactus growing next to you. And some of you are like, I don't like succulents. What is a succulent anyway? You might not understand it, but you are planted to live with it. Get on with what you need to do. Grow. Grow, church, grow. This is your season to grow. It's your season to mature. Stop complaining about the things around you. Stop complaining about the other bushes and the other trees. Stop complaining about your soil. Just find the root source. Find it and you will grow. Stop looking at yourself and say, oh, I'm just a tiny tree. I'm so full of diseases. I've got this white stuff all over me. I've got these black spots all over me. I've got these colored spots all over me. I've got these viruses all over me. You know how you treat it? You grow. You just grow new branches. You grow new leaves. An oak tree develops a particular disease. And you know how it deals with it? Do you know what an oak tree does? When there's a particular pest that brings diseases to an oak tree. And this is fast. You see it, you must watch the documentary. Oak tree starts to vibrate. It starts to quiver. It's an oak tree, that massive oak, starts to vibrate, to start to scare off the things that would attack it. And some of you have been standing, you've been shaking, but not vibrating. You've been falling for everything, but you haven't been glorious in worship. You haven't been fervent in the word. When the enemy comes near you, he needs to hear a resonance. That vibration produces a sound called a resonance. Some of you need to resonate. You need to ward off the enemy with the right frequency. And that frequency is found in spirit and truth. It's found in the word. It's found with how you connect in the house. And we have been talking for months and weeks about connecting to grace, connecting to spiritual fathering, connecting. And I'm stood here many times and I explained to you how we in the last few years have accelerated in the development of what we need to do in this region. And it's simply to understand how we have connected to grace. We had to humble ourselves to connect to Pastor Thamu and Marolan. It took a lot of humbling. But we were compelled and disciplined by the Lord to do that. We didn't understand why. We were very comfortable with what we were doing and how we were functioning. But the Lord said, it's time for me to plant you, because you need to tap into a grace system to function for what I'm doing in the earth. And He planted us. And in our first meeting, we met family, and we realized what it meant to be in a forest of oaks. We figured out very quickly why the Lord had uprooted us and replanted us. I want to tell you, we are learning the sound. We are learning the frequency that causes hell to shake. I want to say, we are not a bonsai. We are not for display. And there's some things about what we do as Eternal Flame that's not pretty. And people will come here and they will see what we do and say, it's not for me, for me. I want to say, for this year, I'm not interested in potters. I'm interested in implanters. I want to plant some trees. I want to, and our oversight is ready and prepared. Our spades are ready because there's some trees where we need to turn the soil because the soil has become hard and clay and no water can get through. But we are turning some soil and some things, and we had a long meeting yesterday. There's some things you will hear us say to you in the most loving way that you would leave and feel totally offended. And I want to say, you can then be upset because pot plants get upset. Or you can say, John chapter 15, the trees that produce, the vine that produces fruit, the vine dresser prunes. The one that produces much fruit is pruned hard. I want to say our function as fathers in the house is not just to make you look good so that others can say, aren't they a wonderful bunch of people? They look so wonderful. I wish I can just cut some and put them in my display. My role is to come and say, there's a branch in your life. Sister, it's dead. That relationship that you have tied yourself to, it's dead. It's time to move on. Oh, that job, brother, that you have sought, that this career is your life source, I want to say, and you are frustrated. On a Sunday night, you already have stomach cramps like you used to have in primary school. You're nauseous on a Monday morning, and everything is blue. I tell you why? Because that life source is false. It is not true. There is a true life source. Your company is not your provider. Jehovah Jireh is. When you stop depending on this world for your source and you tap in with your root system, you get life forevermore. So I want to leave you with the last picture, and it's this one. And I had a pastor, I wasn't here the day, but a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, he came and he confessed. He said, Charles, you weren't here, man, pastor, but I came through the door and I was looking at what you guys were doing. I was really impressed. And I saw these trees growing inside. And I said, I wanted to take a sample to Stodels and ask them where I can buy the same tree. So he was standing, he said, Pastor, I must confess, I broke off because I was pulling and nothing, the leaves weren't coming. So I pulled a bit too hard and I pulled a whole branch off, Pastor. I'm so sorry. And only afterwards I realized it's not a real tree. I'm so glad he confessed because I saw the branch laying there and I said, now who would do this? I think he told me that after I told him we got cameras here in church. So, and have you found those type of Christians? They look good, but they're artificial. You pluck on them and nothing moves because they're dead. They are dead. They were created by another source. They're created by man. They're not created by God. And I want to say this year, be careful of the sources that you tap into that are artificial. Be careful of the leaders that you tap into that are artificial. Check it out. When you pull on them, they're tight. They're not giving. And when you examine it closely, it looks like the real thing from far, but it's far from real. I want to say there are people in your life who are artificial. Stop trying to tug on them and bring them into the real world. They're not made for the real world yet. Pinocchio is going to be made a boy soon. But it's not your job to do it. Can I tell you? Focus on growing. On this first Sunday, can I encourage you? Grow. Tell somebody, grow. Grow. And I certainly don't mean this way. Okay? We're going to grow that way. We're going to grow this way. We're going to grow towards heaven. We're going to glorify our Father. And as a church, we have come into our season of growth. Do not be afraid of the Father's pruning. Do not be afraid of the Spirit nipping at you. Do not be afraid of tough messages. I want to say, if you have a tough message for somebody, can I just give you some house rules? Give it to me first. Because the tough message spoken in the wrong tone is a wrong message. You could have a right message from God, but when you cover it in your own leaves, your fig leaves, it's the wrong message. If you have a word for somebody, fast and pray before you give it. Because the most horrible thing to do in life is to speak on behalf of God. And it's not God speaking. You don't want to get into that. Can we come to a place of authenticity this year? A place where the word is preached here unadulterated. It's tough, it's raw, and it's real. And it's deep. If you've been drowning in some of the doctrines we've been teaching, some of the thoughts and some of the concepts, and it's been tough for you, and you walk away here and you're going and tell people, oh, they're talking nonsense. I want to say, don't do that. Because you are judging oak trees like an artificial tree. You don't have the experience to do it, nor the qualification. Go to the oak tree, tug on it, and say, is it real? I want to say, when you come to me, and if I say anything doctrinally that you are challenged by, you can come to the oak, tug on it, and say, I don't understand this. I'm challenged by this. I want to say, the oak is going to vibrate. And you're going to get the frequency. And you're going to tap into your destiny, your purpose, your redemptive purpose, why you were called and made. And I want to invite you. Some of you are planted here for a season to grow. My role as the father of this house is to make sure the soil is right, to make sure the environment is right, to make sure the pests are kept away, to make sure that you don't become a bonsai and you don't become a pot plant. I am not here to prune you so that you look pretty for others. My role is to prune you that you'll produce fruits. Is that okay? If that's okay with you, tell somebody, I'm ready for pruning. I'm ready for pruning. And for those of you who know my life, the Lord has pruned me hard. There are times I've been cut close to the bone of death. And some of you know, my family knows that. But you know what? I complained and I screamed and I moaned and I nagged on the Lord. But months later, when I look back, I say, oh, I understand. It was to carry the fruit. It was to carry the load. It was to carry the work that you needed me to do. And you were just preparing me to produce the fruit. This is your season of fruit bearing. Don't be afraid of being pruned. Don't be sidetracked by the trees around you who look better. Their family that's growing together is looking so happy, and you're saying, I'm just a single oak struggling here in this forest. And everything else and everyone else's life is doing, all the trees are doing fantastic. The message to you today is grow. You grow. Don't be sidetracked. And I hope that this last scripture will become your theme for this year. Psalm 1 talks about where you sit and where you plant it. Talks about don't be planted and seated with unrighteousness. Be careful, the scornful. Be careful of those who talk lies and nonsense. Be careful where you are planted. And I want to say, Eternal Flame is an oasis of healing. It's where you find water. It's where you find resources. It's where you find healing. And sometimes it's for a season where you are prepared to go and function in another area of life. I've long time realized that's one of our key roles we play in the world to the nations is a healing and resource center. And that's what we're building here. It's a global healing and resource center. Yesterday, our elders spent time together, and it was amazing. Every single one of their times alone, talking and drawing what they see the Lord doing for this year. Every single one of them had a picture of others and the nations that we are providing, and we are a resource center. It was just awesome for me to see. Are you ready? Are you ready, church? I tell you, I feel like that athlete that the starter is about to call the call for the race. Get ready. And I feel that excitement in me. And it's not just for Eternal Flame. And it's not just for our Gate family. It's for the world. It's get ready. Get ready. Be planted. And maybe if this is your life, you've been hurt before, and you're very careful of being planted. Can I say, your growth will be limited by the size of your container. And if we're serious about growth, I'm serious about saying, you've outgrown your place in the vineyard here at Eternal Flame. We are happy to send you to any part of the world, because now it's time for you to function there as well. We need to move to be a sending church, not just a receiving church. That's not in my notes. So I promised you a question. Are you potted or planted? Only you can answer that. If I answer that, I'll be judging. It's not yet time for that pruning. But that's your question this morning. Can you answer it? If I were one-on-one with you, are you potted or you planted? Or maybe you haven't yet accepted the Lord. Maybe you haven't made a confession of faith. Maybe you've not been born again. You're still living that artificial life. You're still trying to live in this world artificially. You are not made to be artificial. You are made to be a created being, to live. Jesus says, I've come to give you life, Zoe life, and you will live it more abundantly. Life more abundant. Artificial can't do that life. And if you're here this morning and you have not accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, I've got sad news for you. You're just artificial. Your life is not real yet. It's the matrix. You need to take the pill. Are you artificial? Do you want to be real? It's going to cost you. You're going to need to acknowledge, I'm an artificial. I'm not born again. I'm not saved. I've never given my life to Jesus. Charles, I'm really tired. An artificial thing knows nothing about eternal life. I'm so ignorant. Help me. I can help you. I offer you Jesus. He's the Lord. He's our Savior. He's our Redeemer. He's our King. He died to save us. And if you're here this morning and you're living this artificial life where it's from one channel to another, one party to another, one high to another high, I want to say I'm going to introduce you to the highest high you can have. He is the King of all kings. He is higher than every king in this world, and His name is Jesus. And I want to offer you a high that you will never have a low again. His name is Jesus. And if you're here today and you've not known Him, I want to invite you to accept Him. Right as you sit there, say, I leave this artificial life. I confess that I'm a sinner. And Lord Jesus, I invite you to make me new, to make me be born again in spirit, that I will be planted today to be real. If this is you and you're praying this prayer, say, I'm tired of this artificial life, you can come speak to me or any one of our elders or anyone. Just grab them and say, I want to be born again today. You just come and you speak to me. At the start of this new year, you can say, I'm not living 2024 artificial.